Hey friends, thanks for stopping by the channel. And today I'm going to smoke you a bison eye of round roast that you can't refuse. From Columbus, Ohio, I'm Grill Father Johnny L. And this is Texas North BBQ and Griddle.
We are live from my backyard where I am smoking these meat like a brisket. I'm making meat now. Someone asked me, do I smoke meat? That's gonna be delicious. Yeah, if I smoke meat, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Welcome back. Now, before we head inside, I just want to cover a couple of things. And the first is differences between bison meat and beef. And bison is a leaner cut of meat. It has less calories, saturated fat, and cholesterol, so it has less of that bad stuff and is a great source of protein and iron, omega-3 fatty acids, zinc, B vitamins, beta carotene, and vitamin E. So in short, it's a heart healthy choice. The second thing that I want to stress today is that bison is not buffalo. Bison is not the same as buffalo. Bison sort of has an identity crisis. They are two different species. Bison is native to North America, whereas the buffalo is native to Africa and Asia. A bison is not a domesticated animal, whereas the buffalo is more easily domesticated and more docile. The bison, it has a hump and a larger head and a heavy coat of hair, whereas the buffalo, it has larger horns than the bison. The bison has smaller horns, and the buffalo does not have a hump and has less hair. So those are the main differences. So the thing that I really want to get across here is that do not confuse bison and buffalo like we do so often here in America. They are not the same animal. And we today are dealing with American bison. Let's head inside. Now this is our bison eye of round roast. This came from White Feather Meats in Creston, Ohio. It was cut by one of the Bearded Butchers, and you're familiar with their YouTube channels. What I'm going to do now is move into the preparation stage. We'll get this out of the packaging. We'll dry off the myoglobin that's on here. Then we'll come back, give it a little bit of a trim, put a binder on it, then the rub, put it on a rack, and we'll put it in the refrigerator overnight. I'll see you back in a second. Now, as you can see on here, there's a little bit of silver skin on this side that I want to get rid of. A little bit of fat right here and really not much on the bottom, this little piece right here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to remove this silver skin and get it off of the meat. We want to, remember, we want to trim with the grain, but when the meat's done, we want to cut against the grain. So trim with and cut against. Now I'm not looking to make this trimming a work of art. And I think people put a little too much emphasis on making the trimming job nice and pretty. But the fact of the matter is no one sees the meat prior to it going in the smoker or on the grill. And all that matters in the end is the taste, the tenderness, and the texture of the meat. So in reality, you don't have to trim it all. It's good to take some of the fat off depending on the type of meat that you are cooking. But in the end, you don't have to. It's not a necessary requirement. So the meat's all trimmed up. You can see I got a lot of that silver skin off. So happy with that. And what we'll do now is put our binder on. My binder of choice is duck fat. This is rendered duck fat. And you can use whatever binder you like. You can use olive oil or mustard or whatever it is. I just like to use duck fat because it's something different, has a kind of a healthier benefit to it. So I'm just going to put some here in my baster. Then just squirt it on here, rub it on. Don't need too much. Just want to give our rub or seasoning something to stick to. So that's it. And then we will put our rub on, and I'm going to be using my all-purpose homemade rub, low sodium. So I'm going to sprinkle just to give it a nice coating on here on all sides. And we'll pat it in. Opposite side here. Nice generous coat. Let's not forget the ends. One end. The other end. And that's it. We're all prepped up. And what I'll do is put this on a cooling rack. And I like to cook on a cooling rack because it allows for ease of transport on and off of the smoker. Plus, it's a nice clean surface. I don't have to worry about the smoker grates because the meat never touches them. Don't have to worry about the smoker grates being clean. So this is why I like the cooling rack. I'm going to put this in the refrigerator overnight and let the seasoning, the rub, kind of work some of its magic. And then we'll bring it out tomorrow and put it on the smoker. Now, before we put the bison eye of round roast in the smoker, I want to cover with you a couple of things. And the first is what I call the 4 T's for successful barbecuing. And they are taste, tenderness, texture, and the fourth and most important T of all is the T of technique. I say it's the most important because if you don't get the technique down correctly, then the taste, the tenderness, the texture, one or all 3 of those is going to be impacted. So technique is critical. You may ask about the T of temperature, and temperature is important, not only the temperature inside the smoking chamber, but also the internal temperature that we're aiming for and the ambient temperature outside. But we can control some of the temperatures, so I like to consider the T of temperature to be part of the T of technique. What about the T of time, you may ask? I'm not worried about time. The only time I'm concerned about it is when I'm doing the resting period. Otherwise, you cook to the internal temperature, and that determines when the meat is done. Sometimes it'll take a longer period of time. Sometimes it'll be a shorter period. You just can't rely on time as the barometer for determining when the meat is done. The second thing that I wanted to cover with you today is how to manage and monitor the cook. And what I use to do that is I use a 3-ring binder, a cook log. And contained within this 3-ring binder are cook log sheets that I will get to here in a moment. And the reason that I use a cook log is that it really just helps me stay on track, stay focused. I know when things went on the smoker, and I know when I spritzed, I know when I changed the wood, refreshed the wood. I can keep track of my resting period as well. And we'll see all of that here on the cook log sheet in just a moment. But if you're new, if you are brand new to smoking meats and barbecuing, I highly recommend that you have some sort of cook log monitoring system. And I've been doing this for a long time, and I still do a sheet for all of my cooks. It really helps me stay focused. So let's go ahead and get a bird's eye view of today's cook log sheet. On the left, you can see our pre-cook categories, and then the in-cook categories, which is the M&M stage, the manage and monitoring stage. And then we'll keep track of the rest period, what the weather conditions were like for the day, and any comments that I can use for the next time based on today's cook. We're going to be using the Pit Boss smoker. The roast is 2.8 pounds, so a little under 3 pounds. And as I mentioned before, it came from White Feather Meats, and that was cut up by the Bearded Butchers. It was frozen. We used the all-purpose rub, the duck fat binder. I'm going to do a 1-2 punch today with hickory pellets and post oak mini splits, and then we'll use a water pan as well. We're looking at smoking the meat today around 225 degrees and taking it to an internal target temperature of 135 degrees, a medium rare. So let's go ahead and go outside. The smoker is up to temperature, so the last thing we need to do before we put the meat on is to get our smoker box fired up. And this is the smoker box here. This is a Diamond King smoker. It's a 6-inch by 12-inch size. It comes in a 6x6 as well. This is a game changer when it comes to pellet grills. This smoke box is going to give you stick burner, offset smoker type quality of smoke. And the way it works is you have this stainless steel smoker box. Inside I have an airflow cage with some fire starters. Then I have some lump charcoal in there. I'm going to fire this up. And we're going to let this lump charcoal ignite. Let it ash over just a little bit. Then we're going to come back and we're going to put our post oak mini split on. So we'll give this just a few minutes. Nice fire is going now. The lump charcoal is ashing over. So let's go ahead and put on our post oak mini split. And I get these at Woodchuck Firewood. Andy is the person that runs that company, and he can get you any kind of wood. I just like to use the post oak. You can see I have a nice mini split here. We'll go ahead and put this on. Let it catch. I'm just going to give it a little jump start with the torch here as well. And I promise you, when this goes into the smoker, you're going to see some beautiful post oak smoke generating. Again, this is a game changer for pellet grills. I highly recommend you spend the $50 to get yourself a smoker box. It does take up a little bit of room, but if you're only smoking one meat at a time, which is what I do, then it's not a big deal. So let's go ahead and let this catch, and then we'll get over to the smoker. We have the bison roast in the smoker. The post oak is catching over here. All that's left to do is put some hot water in our water pan. We always want to use hot water. This will just help with moisture inside the smoking chamber. We'll tuck this away underneath. And then now we are officially in the M&M stage, where we're going to manage and monitor the cook. Cooking at about 225 degrees today. We're going to take it to a nice medium rare 135 degrees internal temperature. We'll check back in a little bit. We're an hour and a half into the cook, so I wanted to do a check-in here. I like the color so far. We're at 106 degrees internal temperature. I'm going to give this a spritz of some apple cider vinegar to help keep it moist. And it's going really well right now. So we are a little under 30 degrees to go until we're all finished. My probe alarm just went off at 1:35. So we're going to take this off, take it inside, and then we'll let it rest for about 15 minutes. And then we will get to slicing it up. Our resting period is over. So let's go ahead and get this out of the aluminum foil wrap that we had it in. And let's get to slicing this up. And you can see the nice juices that I've collected in there. We will definitely not waste those. If you've seen my other videos, you know that I like to slice on the double bias. So 45 degrees this way, and then another 45 degrees this way, and this will help with the tenderness of the meat because it'll make it have more surface area on the meat. So that's how I'm going to slice like I normally do. And I'm not going to go with thick slices. Cut them nice and thin. And the juices are really starting to pour as I slice. You can see as I slice here. And I have to make sure I don't lose any of those juices either. Getting close to the middle here. So I let it rest for about 15 minutes. Probably could have rested maybe a little bit more, but here's your final product. Took it to 135 internal temperature. Just going to finish slicing this up, and then we will do a little taste test off to the side, and I'll come back with some closing comments. Well, that's a wrap, my friends, for today's video on how to smoke a bison eye of round roast. Now, if you've seen my other videos, you know I don't do taste tests on camera because I can't offer you a bite to eat, and I feel bad about that. So I like to mind my manners and not do that in front of you. I did do a taste test off to the side, had a few bites, was really happy with the taste, the tenderness, the texture, and the overall color of the roast. So I would consider this a good outcome for today, a really good outcome. If I had to do anything differently, I might take it to a 130 degree internal temperature versus the 135. I think we ended up on the edge, on the high end of medium rare. You can see in the picture here, a piece or slice of the pinkness. I would have liked it to be a little bit darker pink, but that's all right. It didn't affect anything in terms of taste, tenderness, or texture. And also, I might have let it rest a little bit longer than 15 minutes. You saw that the juices were flowing pretty heavily. But don't worry, and that happens once in a while, even though you go through a nice rest period. But what we want to do is just save those juices and treat them as an au jus so that when you eat the meat, you can just dip it and you still don't lose that juiciness. And don't forget, when you put it in the refrigerator, if you have any leftovers, don't waste that juice so that when you go to heat it up, again, you're going to have that, you're not going to be wasting any of those juices. So I'm really happy with today's outcome. And again, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you follow the technique and that you'll be happy with the way your bison eye of round roast turns out. So I am going to give this the Grill Father Johnny L stamp of approval. Hey everyone, thanks for watching today. Really appreciate it. Hope you found today's video helpful. You do me the favor of hitting the like and subscribe buttons and also the notification bell so that you know when new videos of mine come out, and also share this video with a family member or friend. Until next time, take care, God bless, and smoke on.